So you guys are probably thinking, hey Utsav, why are you here talking about resumes instead of helping us get better at software engineering, right? Well, here's why. With millions of job applications to top tech companies each year, your resume is one of the very few tools you have that will help you get noticed. But multiple eye tracking studies have shown that a recruiter on average only spends about 6 seconds looking at a resume. Yep, you heard that right. That is just 6 seconds. And that is how long you have to catch their attention. If you don't, there is no phone screen, there is no interview, and there is no dream job. You may be great at interviewing, but if you can't get the interview, it doesn't really matter. So now look at your resume and ask yourself, do you have a resume that will catch a recruiter's attention in about 6 seconds? If the answer is yes, you're all set. Congratulations. But if the answer is no, or you're not sure, then watch on. In this video, I will give you tips on how to write a solid resume and then put your resumes through the 6-second test. Not only that, I will also provide actionable feedback on those resumes. And thank you to all of you who submitted your resumes for this video. I got over 100 submissions from 14 different countries in just 24 hours. That's amazing. All right, let's begin. Before we begin, I have some quick channel updates. But if you don't care for the updates and want to go straight to the resume stuff, feel free to jump ahead. Timestamps are in the description below. First, going forward, this channel will solely be focused on software engineering content. Things like tutorials, courses, career advice, and interview prep. And for that reason, it also went through a major rebranding. As you can see, the channel is now called Engineering with Utsav instead of Utsavized. Second, the channel Utsavized will be my lifestyle channel that will have a lot of tech, cars, travel, music, food, coffee, and of course my dog. So if you are into that kind of stuff, link to that channel is in the description below. But if you're here only for the engineering content, that's cool. Subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell icon so you don't miss videos like this. And if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below or message me on Instagram. As most of you already know, I try to respond to every single one of your comments and Instagram messages. With that said, let's get started. The first advice I have for you is not to get too creative with your resume. Don't take me wrong, I'm all about creative ideas and out-of-the-box thinking, but your resume is probably not the place to express yourselves very creatively. I'll give you an example to help you understand why. So in most countries, you have to be a certain age to enter a bar, right? In the US, that is 21. In many other places around the world, it is probably 18. So there's usually a person outside the door of a bar checking your IDs to make sure you're old enough to enter. Their job is to check as many IDs as possible and keep the line moving. That is the reason why most IDs are of standardized format and size, where you have your name, picture, your address, and date of birth. That way, they can quickly scan the ID, verify that it's you and whether you're old enough. And that's all. Now imagine if each individual had a different form of ID. Some were the size of a letter, others were the size of an SD card, some pretty standard, where others were full of glitters and unicorns. Wouldn't it be incredibly difficult for the bouncer to do their job? This exact thing applies to recruiters. Their first and top priority is to screen you in or out. Do you have the right skill set? And are you qualified for the position? And they need to do that as fast as possible. So the more standardized your resume is, the faster and more effectively they can do their job. Also, please keep your resume within one page. Only in extremely rare cases do you ever need to go more than one page. You'll understand what I mean when we look at some real resumes later. So when I say don't be too creative with your resume, I don't mean make it devoid of personality. Because once your resume has passed the initial screen, it gets a lot of attention from the recruiter as well as the interviewer. And at that stage, reflecting some of your personality in your resume will help you become memorable and stand out from the rest of the competition. For example, if you have traveled to, say, more than 30 countries in the past 5 years, mention it. Because as an interviewer, that is not only interesting, but if I love traveling as well, you'll immediately strike a chord. Don't take this as getting a free pass though. It does not matter how many countries you have traveled to if you cannot do well in the interview. But if you did do well on your interview, and then you have something interesting to show, you stand out from the rest. In other words, be humble but brag about your achievements. See, your resume is no place to be super humble. After all, it is your resume, not your team's resume, not your mentor's resume, and not your manager's resume. It is yours. So talk about what you did. Yes, sure, there are many things that you do as a team, so do mention those when an entire team was part of it. Teamwork is a crucial aspect of being a successful engineer. But don't forget to mention what you did. If everything on your resume is about what your team did, as a hiring manager or an interviewer, I don't get a signal into what your capabilities are. That being said, please don't claim that you're an expert on anything, period. Your resume as a whole should be enough to indicate that you have a lot of experience in something. There is absolutely no reason to explicitly announce that you're an expert. Because one, it is really difficult for anyone to be an expert in anything in computer science. And two, if your interviewer is also extremely well versed in what you're claiming to be an expert in, you could get into a lot of trouble. For example, C# is one of my favorite languages. I've used it for over a decade on many different projects now. If I'm interviewing you and you claim to be an expert in C#, I will be expecting you to teach me a thing or two about C# because I don't think I'm an expert in C#. And please don't lie in your resume. This should be common sense, but you'll be surprised at how many resumes I've come across where candidates have blatantly lied about their accomplishments. Lying may get you through to the initial screen, but when you actually end up in your resume, you will get caught. And it's not good for anybody. Nobody wins and everybody's time is wasted. So just don't lie. This point is often the hardest one for me to explain. A majority of resumes that I look at simply look like they copy-pasted the job description instead of showcasing what they achieved. And this is the easiest to understand if you look at a real example. Okay, so let's find a random job listing from, say, Microsoft for a senior software engineer. Okay, so let's look at the qualifications section. So it says here 6+ years of proven track record for building and shipping production software, demonstrated ability and experience in the entire services deployment cycle, design, implementation, deployment, and live site. Okay. Experience with C#, C++, Java, or equivalent is required. Okay. Experience with Docker, VSTS, Akamai is an asset. Experience with modern web technology like React, Redux, Grunt, Webpack is an asset. Experience with cloud deployments and management is an asset like Azure and AWS. And finally, experience with combined engineering teams with owned testing and deployment is preferred. Bachelor's or master's degree in computer science or equivalent industry experience. Okay, that's pretty straightforward. Now let me change this up a bit. So imagine if this were someone's resume. So we have some name over here. Summary is 6+ years of industry experience in C# and a proven track record of building and shipping production software. Okay, that's a good summary. And for education, they've got a bachelor's degree in some university at some date. Cool. And then as part of their work experience, they're a senior software engineer at XYZ company at some city, some country from, say, Jan 2010 to Jan 2020. So this looks like a pretty common resume that you come across a lot. So now help me figure out what else does this resume tell me about this candidate that the job description does not. In behavioral interviews, there's a technique called STAR that you use to frame your answers. STAR basically stands for situation, task, action, and result. So my advice to you guys is that you use the same technique for your resumes. For each position that you have held, think of what was the situation you were involved in. What task did you have to do? What was the action did you take? And what was the result? Now let's reframe the same example from above and look at it from the STAR perspective. So the situation we have is a senior software engineer working at XYZ company working on some project. The task is that they're responsible for leading a team of 6 people tasked at improving the front-end deployments that weren't very agile and taking up hours each time the deployments happened. The action here is led re-architecting of the CI/CD pipeline, removed unnecessary dependencies, containerized deployment packages for isolation and easier bug tracing, and utilized serverless Azure functions to streamline the whole process. And the result? Improved deployment speed by 85%, lowered deployment bugs and issues count by 37%, and since VMs were replaced by serverless technology, saved 42% on operational costs. Of course, this is just a fictional example, but I hope you get the difference between simply copy-pasting a job description and actually listing out your accomplishments. This will also be much more clear when we look at some real examples in a bit. The final advice I have for you is to prioritize the sections of your resume and keep the tone of the entire resume consistent. By that, I mean, make sure the important things are at the top. If you're a student, your education and projects should be on the top. If you are a beginner, you already have a little bit of experience, your current work experience and your education can still go at the top. And if you're experienced, your skills and experience should go at the top and your education falls below. And finally, keep the tone consistent. And by this, I don't mean the literal tone. What I mean by tone is what your resume tells about you. If you are into machine learning, your resume should clearly give that feel. If you're a software engineer, I should clearly know that you're into software engineering after I read your resume. If you list out your experience as a barista, then your experience building some cool software, then your work as a graphics designer, and then your work as a social worker where you also build some website, I don't really get a feel for what you're looking for. So make sure to be clear and consistent of what you want your resume to tell about you. It's okay to drop some work experience and projects in favor of some consistency. Remember, quality is always better than quantity. Alright, that's all the tips I have. Now let's look at some of your resumes. I will put each of your resumes through the same 6-second rule that I mentioned in the beginning of the video and tell you whether it passes the test or not. And I'll also go through them quickly to mention what they did well and where they can improve. I'll go through them fast because that's how resumes are looked at. So if it's too fast for you, you can pause or slow down the video. And I want to thank you guys again for sending me your resumes. You guys were so generous. If I sound a little bit harsh in some of the resumes, please don't take it personally. I'm only trying to show you how it would be in a real life situation where interviewers and recruiters have to look at hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of resumes, sometimes in one day. So they really are quick, fast, and don't have that much patience with a lot of things that you guys may think that they will give a lot of time into. So that's all. Again, don't take it personally. It's just me trying to teach you guys how it is, and that's all. All right, with that said, let's get to the resumes. All right, guys, let's look at the first resume here and put it through the 6-second rule. So at a glance, this is too cluttered for me. And I know the candidate probably wanted to stand out and had all the right intentions. He's using a different typeface, lots of bold, uppercasing, lowercasing. And from a graphical standpoint, it actually looks pretty decent. But from the perspective of a resume, and especially a resume being scanned in less than 8 seconds, this is too cluttered. I can quickly see that there's a skills section here, but then there's a skills development section here. There's a lot of certificates, and that's good, but it's seriously competing now with this space, which seems like his projects. So that's a lot of projects, and I think I'm looking for his education and I can't find his education. Oh, okay, it's here. So it's kind of hidden here, small little space. So he just recently graduated, so his technical projects are probably the most critical thing here, and the education. So I would expect that to be up top somewhere here. But I had to literally, as you can see, scan for it and look for it for a good 30 seconds before I could find it. So for that reason, the 8-second scan, this definitely fails. I would have passed on it already because I need to go through more resume. But let's actually look at the details of this and what he did good and what he could improve on. So he listed his technical skills, that's good. And I like the fact he differentiated between proficient and familiar with, so that he's being honest and upfront saying that, hey, I'm proficient in these things, but I'm only familiar with these other things. He's listed all his links to GitHub, Medium, LinkedIn, and that's good. I would love to see this up top because that's a more important thing. I would also love to see a GPA here that kind of shows off that you're a good student. I like the skills development that he listed and shows that he's a self-starter and he does a lot of things on his own without anybody telling him. But the problem with this skills development section over here is that it's seriously competing against this guy over here, right? And your technical projects tend to be more important, especially for a fresh graduate. So let's look at the last project over here. Built a minimal college information inquiry chatbot from scratch in Python. That's good, but I kind of don't get any information about what sort of inquiry it is. It is just a yes or no inquiry, or are you asking for complex mapping situations? And let's look at the other one. I actually like this guy because he's classified Nepalese news articles into 16 categories using the SVM. He's mentioned the vector machines there, and then the accuracy as well, so which is really good because he's indicated numbers. But the thing that I'm missing here is what was the volume of articles, right? Like, so did you classify 100 articles or did you classify a million articles? Like how many, right? This is a problem, right? Like satisfiable result. What is satisfiable, right? Pixel perfect. Who decides if it's pixel perfect? You or the customer or someone else? Pixel perfect is not quantifiable, if you know what I mean. The problem I have here is what was the impact here? Okay, you implemented that, but did it solve the problem? Was there a problem tracking migrants in the border? How did it improve it? How did it solve it? Did you actually start it and then someone took over it and now it's being worked on? I have no clue, right? Like, it just shows. And again, this is the star method that I was talking about. I don't know the results here. So let's look at the last one here. I'm not going to be too picky on this one because he just started. It's November 2020, so he hasn't probably had that much time to work on it. But it says working on an in-house machine learning product that deals with natural language processing. Can it get more vague than that? Like, what the hell does this mean, right? Like, I have no clue. Like, okay, in-house machine learning product. I mean, it says that you're a machine learning engineer, so no wonder you're working on machine learning, but that also deals with natural language processing. Well, yeah, ML usually deals with that, but what did you do? Like, I'm interested in that. So this line doesn't tell me any information about what you did. And then responsibilities include performing research, model creation, training, implementation. That's what ML engineers do. But what did you do? Like, what was the impact? Again, back to the star method over here. So yeah, these are the things you could improve. Again, don't be too hard on yourself. I mean, you've just graduated. I'm just probably being more critical than I need to, but it's good to learn about little things that you can improve and how you can make this better going forward. So right off the bat, this one's way cleaner. Languages and technologies, or his skill set, is written right above there. It's very clear, super nice. Looks like he has exposure from all the way to the front end to the back end, entire stack. At a glance, now I'm interested to read his resume more, right? Like, so he's caught my attention, especially if I'm looking for something related to C#.NET, someone who's got exposure to the cloud, a little bit of asynchronous processing, containers, you know, like some NoSQL databases. That's very cool. Like, he's got my attention. So the 6-second rule, pass. So he says he's a software developer here. And then if you quickly glance through what he's doing here, right? Like, software engineer, primary system administrator for a mission critical application with 2000 users, 24/7 availability. Okay. 3 application support for mission critical applications used by someone. Okay. Again, support. Solve 300 plus tickets per calendar year with client satisfaction in 97%. What does solved mean? I don't know. Did you fix bugs or did you just assign the tickets? Satisfaction percentage is kind of high and good. But I don't know what solving means. Modify SSIS packages. So then you're talking about integration services there. So maybe it's like a database kind of thing. So it looks like maybe some DevOps or interfacing kind of activity happening there. And then support ever-growing databases through maintenance upgrades. Okay, this seems, again, support work. So if you know what I'm picking on is like the software developer kind of doesn't jive with what the description says. This looks like a support role to me, more like a tech support, maybe a more advanced tech support, but I don't see anything a software developer would do. Like, none of the things that he has mentioned here is what a software engineer does or developer does. So I don't know anything about his code quality, what kind of things he builds. As a software developer, this would have been passed here. I wouldn't read any further because this resume gets even more confusing, where now the software developer role switches to field application engineer, and then this has nothing to do with development at all. It's very go to the field, you know, provide support, test out, like almost like manufacturing stuff. And then you go further down, it's component and reliability engineer. So as you can see, if this came to me, it's a good resume. When I scanned through it, it had all the right things. It started off well, so it caught my attention. But as I read through it, the consistency wasn't there. This is clearly not a software engineer or a software developer resume, at least in my mind. Or maybe it's more like an application engineer or support engineer. Maybe he needs to change these titles over to that. Then it would be more consistent. That would be more like, hey, I'm a support or applications engineer with some development experience. Okay, that works. That makes this a very strong resume, right? But if it's a software engineer or software developer resume, I don't see anything here that would make me believe that this is a strong candidate, right? So I hope that makes sense. Let's move on to the next one. At a glance, 6 seconds. This is well structured. I see where the work experience is. He's done research and projects important for a fresh graduate, which I already saw because education is at the top. He's mentioned his skill. I can clearly see he's listed his certifications and extra coursework, which is kind of good for a new software engineer. awards as well, and then a little bit of extra. This is the personality bit I was talking about. He included volunteering. You may include some interesting fact about yourself or something like that, but it's categorized well. He's prioritized all the important things up top and then kind of snuck in the little extra bits if you were to read further, right? Like, this is excellent organization. This is good. Clustered 10,000 research papers. See how the number is important? If he had just said clustered research proposal documents using K-means algorithm, I wouldn't really know what volume is he talking about, but 10,000 for someone who's doing as a project is a decent number. Wrote Python script to scrape, there's a spelling mistake here, probably scrape. Wrote Python scripts to scrape 100 images, which is not a lot, but he's mentioning, and that also shows honesty, right? He's not claiming anything more than he's done. 100 images from university's live cam and 2 and 5 second intervals, and created 10,000 and 40,000 tiles for each images. Good. He's not claiming anything more, anything less. Maybe that's impressing, maybe that is not. He's being honest so that he can answer follow-up questions for what he's done. For the next experience, organize meetings to gather customer requirements. I mean, organized meeting is not a big thing for a machine learning engineer. Even though you did it, I probably wouldn't include here. But overall, this is good. It's a good resume. My only feedback here is to mention more impact, because it looks like you have worked a good amount of time on this guy. So if you could mention what you achieved out there, I think this is a solid resume. All right, right off the bat, 6-second rule. Technical skills right here is very good, and a lot of his projects are here. All of them are into machine learning type things. So awesome. This is good. 6-second rule, pass. I'm interested. Let me read further. Developed sentiment model to classify industry-related news and positive, negative, and neutral. Okay, it tells me that you've used industry-related news, but then no volume, no impact. So I don't really know what the result of your work was or how complicated the project was if you don't mention those to me. I know that you did that and you're familiar with it, but it would be nice to know the size and the impact of the project. All right, let's look at the software engineer experience here. So like the first one is already interesting, right? Designed GraphQL Java service to prevent over or under fetching of data. So that's already telling me why that was done, right? Some sort of interaction API gateway, improved performance by 13% of use case. That is awesome. So there was some over under fetching of data happened, and then he wrote the interfacing, he wrote the API gateway and then improved performance by 13%. Good. Introduced tool for dynamic GraphQL schema generation, cache results with Java cache, and to further reduce latency. So at least he's mentioned why he's done that. I would have loved to see what the reduction in latency numbers were. Like, a lot of people mentioned testing and test coverage. Utilized unit testing frameworks to reach 100% test coverage. Excellent. But how much code was there that needed test coverage? Right? Like, did you write one function and then created 100% test coverage? That's not that impressive. Maybe it was thousands and maybe millions of lines of code. I don't know. So quantify again. Yeah, this is pretty solid. Probably one of the best so far. All right. Let's move on. Right off the bat, you can see this is a little bit more verbose and a lot of text, but he still managed to consistently format it and display it in a manner where I know where the experience is. All right, these are the experiences. Okay, software projects. Now I'm immediately thinking, did this person graduate recently? And then I scroll down. Okay, that's education right here. And then, yep, they sort of graduated recently. So they're not like a fresh graduate. It's been a year, but recently enough where inclusion of projects are still a valid thing to do. And I would even move the education above, but that's fine. He's got enough experience to cover that up. And then skills, he's mentioned that normally I suggest to put skills up top, but I will show you here that he's done something pretty interesting where for each position, he's mentioned what knowledge he leveraged, right? Like, which is pretty interesting too. That's if you have space in your resume, you can do that. That's a really good way. But overall, I'll quickly scan. Built a similarity search ML model which improved accuracy from 84 to 95. And then that's the improvement by catching manipulated duplicate images by pixel difference. So you see, he's even telling you how he did it. Awesome. Built a cost-effective face detection model which saved $250,000 per year for the company by replacing a third-party service used for face detection and blurring technique by using ensemble technique of building multiple ML model and achieved accuracy of 92% with less false positive rate of around 5%. That is awesome. Like, what else do you need to know about what this person's done, right? Phenomenal. So that's how you write sentences. That's achievements right there. He's not only telling you what he did, but why he did it, how he did it, and what was the impact. Star, right? Situation, task, action, result. So I'm not going to go through this entire resume line by line, but you can see this theme throughout the resume. Boosted productivity of administrative work by 20% by building pipeline of using which analyzes PDF automatically and generates table of content and also deactivate hyperlinks using regex. This is officially the best one so far. All right, so this one is a little bit more experienced person. As you can see, they clearly have around 10 years of experience. So one of the things that stands out right away is a quick scan. The summary is like about a page. So that's a lot. And then previous experience, we're already running out of space. Then company, it's like 3 pages, except for the first one, which was from Nepal. The rest of them have been from US or maybe Canada. This one is, I think, from India. So I don't know if it's acceptable in India to have multiple page resumes. If it is, then I have nothing to say over there. At least in US and Canada, it's usually recommended to have 1 page. The sad part about this is like all of this could have totally been consolidated over here and here and here. And with the formatting, it would have probably fit the 1 page thing, right? But not only that, like the summary has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like 10 or 12 bullets here, right? Like, but then if I go to the actual senior software engineer role, the role is senior software engineer now through present, and then there's a project description which is unnecessary. But then if you look at responsibilities and achievements, it's like 2 lines, right? Feature enhancement like Slack and Teams integration. Okay, that's like pretty trivial for a senior software engineer, right? Like that's usually like level 1 or 2 or even intern level thing. And then started playing critical role in the implementation. Like, what does that even mean? Yeah, I expect you to play a critical role because you're a senior software engineer. You know, that's a given. This would be a pass for me, unfortunately. This is the last one. A lot of text, but still well formatted that I know what's going on here. Education up top, graduation date up top. I know that this person's not graduated yet. Software engineer intern, so they put their internship experience. And looks like this person also has founded something. Side projects, pretty cool. Okay. So if I read on, there's a coursework. They've included all their important courses. That's good. And then they've included the technologies they know. That's good. Everything I need to know. Good. So software engineer intern launched an automated underwriting service that approves or declines customer loan and lease requests for something. Receives 100,000 plus applications. Important to know numbers. So that's a lot of applications, and they've created a service that solves that problem. Good. And then managing risk oversight for billions of dollars annually. So that's awesome. Built API in JavaScript and web framework that receives declined applications, allowing underwriters to make manual decisions. Okay, I would have loved to know what the API numbers were, but that's cool too. Decreased customer wait time and reapprovals by 78%. That's good. And then one thing I wanted to highlight is this guy over here. And this is what I meant about personality. So you don't, this is not like a fancy, too creative resume. It's pretty straightforward. It looks like a generic resume, but this is where this person has inserted their personality into it, right? Like serious, and bam, suddenly right here is like a little joke. But the reason this works, because it says speed next to someone, and I don't want to disclose their identity, but just know that this company that they worked for is a pretty big company, very well-known company, and then the CEO is like a celebrity. Everybody knows the CEO, okay? So the fact that this person's mentioned that, oh, I happen to be next to this person, if you read that, you'd chuckle, you'd laugh. And that's the kind of thing, it's harmless, it's funny, but it works because the rest of the resume is pretty strong, right? Like if the rest of the resume was like full of nonsense, then this would suddenly be like, what the hell, man, you know? So this is a strong, I would consider maybe another internship position, or at least for an entry-level position. Definitely seems like a cool person. Alright, that's all I have for today. I hope this video is useful. If it was, hit the like button, share the video, and let me know in the comments below what you thought about it. Also, subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell icon so you don't miss videos like these in the future. And if you have a question directly to me, feel free to reach out to me on my Instagram. I do my best to respond to every message I get over there as well. And finally, if you're interested in my lifestyle and non-software engineering content, please feel free to follow me there. The link to the new channel is in the description below. I'll see you around.